aiming to connect a region of over 600 more bridges between our lands.
Good evening, Amal Angeles. You're watching ASEAN in Focus on today's program. A Chinese Coast Guard ship cut off a Philippine patrol vessel carrying journalists in the disputed South China Sea, causing a near collision. The incident happened after the Philippine Coast Guard boats approached Second Thomas Shoal, where Philippine Marines are stationed, in a rundown Navy ship grounded to assert Manila's territorial claim in the waters. AFP was one of the several media outlets invited to join the two Philippine Coast Guard boats on a 1,040-mile patrol of the South China Sea, visiting the dozens of islands and reefs, and they witnessed the incident firsthand. And this week, Singapore hanged a prisoner after he was convicted of conspiracy to smuggle 1 kilogram of cannabis, despite rights groups decrying many flaws in the case. Tangaraju Supia's family continued to appeal to authorities to spare his life right till the end, as did international bodies, including the United Nations. When Japanese journalist Kenji Nagai was shot dead by Myanmar troops as he covered anti-military protests in 2007, his video camera disappeared along with the last images he filmed. On Wednesday, 16 years and a secret journey out of Myanmar later, the camera and its contents were handed back to his family, who hope the footage will hold clues to the final moments of his life. And Thai police have widened an investigation into a woman accused of a spate of cyanide poisoning murders, with officers raising the number of victims to 13 and charging her with premeditated murder. Police believe the motive is money, but police said she denies all the allegations against her. A Chinese Coast Guard ship cut off a Philippine patrol vessel carrying journalists in the disputed South China Sea, causing a near collision. The near miss-off the Spratly Islands on Sunday. It was the latest in a steady string of incidents between China and the Philippines in the contested waterway. AFP was one of the several media outlets invited to join the two Philippine Coast Guard boats on a 1,670-kilometer patrol of the South China Sea, visiting a dozen islands and reefs. The BRP Malapascua and BRP Malabrigo were shadowed by Chinese Navy and Coast Guard ships and ordered to leave the waters several times during the 6-day journey. Take a look.
5499. Philippine Coast Guard Vessel 4403. Since you have disregarded our warning, we will take further necessary measures on you in accordance with the law, and any consequences entailed will be borne by you. Over.
This is Philippine Coast Guard BRP Malabrigo MRRV 4402. Conducting site survey for buoy laying operation within the Philippine Exclusive Economic Zone in accordance with international and Philippine national laws. We are proceeding according to our plan route. Request to stay clear from our passage in accordance with the collision regulation. Over.
A Chinese Coast Guard cut off the Philippine patrol vessel. The near collision took place in the disputed waters. The Philippine boat was one of two patrolling waters off the Spratly Islands, and several media outlets were invited to join the expedition. The Chinese ordered them to leave the waters several times, saying they were illegally sailing in China's territorial waters.
Early morning, as early as 0400, no, na-detect na natin yung Chinese Coast Guard 5202, no, minomonitor na tayo, no. So nung in-approach na natin yung Ayungin Shoal, shinado na tayo, meaning they are following, no, nasa ano lang siya, starboard side natin. They kept their distance, siguro mga around 1,000 yards, no? Minomonitor yung movement natin. Mag-a-attempt sana ako, no, na pumasok sa ayungin. Bigla niyang nag-cross siya sa ating bow, no? Kaya kinross niya yung ating bow na actually tayo, almost ang distance na lang natin is nasa 40 to 50 yards na lang yon, no? Nag-cross siya, no? Dangerous maneuver yon ang tawag namin, no? Without due regard sa safety ng navigation, para lang hindi tayo makapasok sa ayungin. Ginagawa nila yan, yung pangharang na yan, no? Isa sa harassment na ginagawa ng China yan, na para hindi natin malapitan yung ayungin. So muntik nang mag-collide yung aming bow, no? Kung hindi pa napigilan yon. Nag-back actually ako, meaning yung engine ko, kumbaga binak ko yung yung power para ma-suppress yung yung speed ko para hindi kami magbanggaan.
On Saturday, the Philippine Coast Guard identified more than 100 vessels, Chinese vessels, parked at Whitsun Reef, which the Philippines claims as part of its exclusive economic zone.
We were able to monitor the Chinese maritime militia are still occupying Julian Felipe Reef with a number of more than 100 vessels. At the same time, the Chinese Coast Guard has always been still aggressive and hostile in countering the presence of the Philippine Coast Guard vessels whenever we pass through Ayungin Shoal. The members and officers of the Philippine Coast Guard value our responsibility, not just for the Filipino people, but for the future generation. We believe that our presence in the West Philippine Sea is the only way that we can be able to assert our control and administration, and to make sure that it won't be taken away from us again.
The Philippine Coast Guard ordered the vessels to leave, but they were ignored.
Philippine Coast Guard 4403. This is Chinese Navy Warship 549er. You are approaching our Jubi Reef. To avoid any move that may cause misjudgment, please leave immediately and keep off. Over.
Every time na magkakanda kami ng RORI mission, meaning rotation reprobation mission, providing security sa Philippine Navy supply boats, every time nakakaranas kami ng ganyan. They will block us, no? While papalapit kami sa ayungin, they will cross our bow, no? Until such time na ibablock na kami, na hindi na ako makakagalaw kasi minsan katulong din nila yung Chinese maritime militia. Nandun, sumasama sa pag-block sa atin para hindi tayo makapasok sa ayungin. So far, ito yung pinakamalapit, no? Kasi ito, hindi ko na-expect talaga na ibablock tayo ng ganon. Kasi nakita man natin nung una, shadowing lang sila, no?
Nag-stay on track tayo nung lumapit yung Chinese Navy warship. So, nasa abim sila ng BRP Malabrigo. And the closest na nag-approach sila, nag-abim is 800 yards on that time.
Beijing claims sovereignty over almost the entire South China Sea, including the Spratly Islands, ignoring an international ruling that the assertion has no legal basis. The U.S. and Philippine troops for the first time conducted a joint live-fire exercise this week in the hotly contested waters, which China claims almost entirely. They fired a salvo of rockets at a warship representing an enemy vessel in the final exercise of the Allies' largest ever military drills. The sinking of the former corvette BRP Pangasinan was the first in the history of the U.S.-Philippine bilateral exercise. Take a look.
The message that we are trying to send is that the alliance is alive and that we are always challenging ourselves. So one Balikatan is always going to be harder and more complex than the previous Balikatan. And that means that in every iteration of Balikatan, you will expect something different. We want to do this because we want to avoid staleness of the exercise, and we also feel the need to challenge ourselves in being able to operate at a different level.
The Philippine forces and U.S. forces have always been allies. And allies in this sense, in a very simplistic way of looking at it, is family. We all know that nothing can break family. And in the culture of the Philippines and in the culture of the United States, sometimes family is everything. You may not see your family every day. You may not talk to your family every day. But when your family calls you, you respond. And in this case, in this family matter, we've been called upon to train together, and we learn from that.
Now, this was followed by artillery units lined up along a grassy field, firing rockets at floating drums 10 kilometers offshore. F-16 fighter Falcons, AH-64 Apache attack helicopters, and Philippine Air Force FA-50 fighter jets were took part in this event. The U.S. military also showed off its Patriot missiles, considered one of the best air defense systems in the world. This year's BALIKATAN follows a deal announced earlier this month for U.S. forces to use an increased number of bases in the country, including one near Taiwan. China considers self-ruled Taiwan a part of its territory. China's Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Mao Ning earlier said that defense and security cooperation between countries should not escalate tensions and should not target any third party. Also this week, Singapore hanged a prisoner after he was convicted of conspiracy to smuggle 1 kilogram of cannabis, despite rights groups decrying many flaws in the case. Tangaraju Supaya's family continued to appeal to authorities to spare his life right till the end, as did international bodies, including the United Nations. Human Rights Watch Deputy Asia Director Phil Robertson said the evidence was far from clear-cut, since he never actually touched the marijuana in question.
Singapore's execution of Tangaraju is absolutely unacceptable. They're trying to say that they're about deterrence, but really what they are is violating international human rights law. By executing this individual for the alleged trafficking of a kilo of cannabis, it shows that Singapore is completely out of step with the international community. People like this person who had a limited amount of ability in English, who was not afforded a translator when he was being interrogated by the police, was not allowed to have a lawyer present when he was being interrogated by the police, and he never actually even touched the marijuana that he's alleged to have trafficked. So, the case looks very suspicious from just an evidentiary point of view. And for now that case to then result in the ultimate penalty, an irreversible outcome, the death penalty.
Singapore authorities have maintained that Tangaraju was given due process and that his guilt had been proven beyond a reasonable doubt. The Ministry of Home Affairs said the evidence clearly showed that he was the person coordinating the delivery of drugs for the purpose of trafficking. About 2.4 million people in Thailand have needed treatment for medical problems linked to air pollution since the start of the year, including nearly 200,000 this week alone, according to health officials. PM Lap Sang Sayayun, a respiratory disease specialist at the Central Chest Institute in Thailand in Nonthaburi, says she has seen a drastic increase in patients since February.
ในแง่ของ PM 2.5 ถ้าเกิดว่าสูดดมเข้าไปค่ะถ้าระดับสูงต่อเนื่องอะค่ะก็คือเอารู้อยู่แล้วว่าถ้าระดับสูงต่อเนื่องเนี่ยจะมีผลทำให้เกิดโรคของระบบทางเดินหายใจคือการเกิดโรคง่ายขึ้นเช่นกลุ่มของถุงลมโป่งพองอย่างเงี้ยค่ะหรือว่าในเด็กอาจจะเกิดกลุ่มของหอบหืดขึ้นมาได้นะคะโดยเฉพาะนอกจากการเกิดโรคแล้วเนี่ยยังมีปัญหาเรื่องของการเกิดการกำเริบของโรคนั้นๆที่เขามีอยู่อะค่ะ
And the weather isn't helping either. Local media reports said that Thailand reported 2 deaths from heat stroke this week. Thailand's meteorological department said on Wednesday that temperatures hit a record equaling 44.6 degrees Celsius or 112 degrees Fahrenheit in the western province of Tak on April 15, warning that the baking weather would continue into the next week. This week, scientists say global warming is exacerbating adverse weather, with a recent report from the UN's Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change warning that every increment of global warming will intensify multiple and concurrent hazards. Meanwhile, the DOH is now advising against excessive exercise, even for athletes. With the extreme temperature, it said you still have to caution yourself against overdoing it.
Mga athletes kasi medyo sanay yan sa talaga physical activity. Pero ang sinasabi din namin, kahit sanay ka, but because you are now in an environment with extreme temperature, you also have to caution yourself in terms of doing so much strenuous activities. Tapos kahit na sasabi mong sanay ako mag-exercise, hindi pa rin kasi mas tataas yung iyong chance na magkaroon ng excessive perspiration. So again, you have to also continue hydrating yourself kahit nag-exercise ka on your regular days. Tapos, ang importante din po dito is that while you are doing exercise, i-check din natin yung ating sarili dahil baka nagkakaroon na nga tayo ng simptomas ng mga impending stroke, tumataas na yung BP natin, sumasakit ang ulo, no? So, wag nating ipagpaliban yon, and therefore, we have to also consult again our doctors, our primary care providers, na hindi ko mo ikaw ay athletic, no? Sinasabi nila, athletic ako, malakas katawan ko. Hindi po. Meron din pong pagkakataon or chance na ikaw ay meron palang underlying illness, so wag nating baliwalain yon. And sometimes, doing the exercise can even aggravate, no, that underlying illness because you are really exercising and exerting too much effort for your body.
It also said that even too much swimming to fight off the heat can turn out to be bad for one's health if you're not careful.
Dahil swimming, no, is quite also a strenuous activity, lalo na kasi langoy ka ng langoy, no? Huwag nating i-overdo yung paglalangoy. Once in a while, we take rest in between strokes, no? Unless you are really a professional swimmer, pero kung parang talagang recreational swimming lang, once in a while, you will take rest while taking the strokes of swimming. So, yun lang po, cooling ang swimming that can really be considered. Pero mag-observe din tayo ng mga do's and don'ts while doing this recreational sport.
President Marcos Jr. has ordered the creation of the Water Resources Management Office. The President issued the order through Executive Order Number 22. In ordering the creation of the office, he said it was imperative for the government to integrate and harmonize the policies, programs, and projects of all relevant agencies in the water resource sector in the fulfillment of their complementary governmental mandates. He also said the WRMO shall be under the Department of Environment and Natural Resources and shall integrate and harmonize all government efforts and regulatory activities to ensure the availability and sustainable management of the country's water supply. In tonight's other news, Thai police have widened an investigation into a woman accused of a spate of cyanide poisoning murders, with officers raising the number of victims to 13 now and charging her with premeditated murder. Police haven't specified how many murders Sararat has been charged with, but they say she denies all the allegations against her. Police have also expanded the geographic area they are investigating to 5 provinces, most to the west of Bangkok. Officers found a substance at the woman's home that authorities believe to be cyanide and suspect she poisoned the victim's food and drink. Following routine health checks in prison, the Department of Corrections confirmed that Sararat is 4 months pregnant and is experiencing stress, blurry eyes, and headaches. Investigators have interviewed her police officer husband and other witnesses. Police described how a 14th person narrowly escaped death after vomiting up poisoned food. Police said the suspect lured her latest victim into eating an herb, and around 20 minutes later, she collapsed.
ก็มาเขาสามารถลงจากรถได้แล้วเดินไปขึ้นรถแอมบูเลนซ์นะพอขึ้นแอมบูเลนซ์หลังจากนั้นเขาหมดสติไปเลยก็คือหัวใจหยุดเต้นหมอบอกว่าหัวใจหยุดเต้นก็คือตายไปแล้วนะครับนะเขาตายไปตั้งแต่เขาอยู่หน้าโรบินสันแล้วหมอบอกว่าเขาตายไปตั้งแต่อยู่หน้าโรบินสันแต่พอไปถึงโรงพยาบาลเนี่ยโชคดีที่หมอปั๊มหัวใจแล้วกลับมาได้นะครับแล้วก็คือมันเกี่ยวกับเรื่องการให้เงินไปสำหรับการฝากในการขอครับเป็นดอกเบี้ยอะไรอย่างเงี้ยฮะเท่าไหร่คะ70,000ครับสำหรับที่ผมทราบนะครับแล้วก็จะมีส่วนที่ว่าเอาไปลงทุนซึ่งขายของที่ TikTok อีกก็คือที่โอนไปก็คือ 26,800 ก็คืออีกก้อนหนึ่งครับ
Police initially suspected the woman of murdering a friend in Ratchaburi province, west of Bangkok, about 2 weeks ago. Local media said the victim collapsed on the bank of the Mae Klong River after releasing fish as part of a Buddhist ritual. After questioning the suspect, investigators linked her to the other cyanide poisoning cases. And police believe money was the motive in the killings, but said that Sararat, who is 4 months pregnant, has previously been diagnosed with psychiatric issues. When Japanese journalist Kenji Nagai was shot dead by Myanmar troops as he covered anti-military protests in 2007, his video camera disappeared along with the latest images he filmed. On Wednesday, 16 years and a secret journey out of Myanmar later, the camera and its contents were handed back to his family, who hope the footage will hold clues to the final moments of his life.
こうして市民がですね、集結しています。されまして、こちらにもありますけれども、16年経ちまして、もう全く希望は持てなかったんですけれども、働きかけだけして待ってましたが、ようやく巡り巡って A ちゃんナイさんの心により出演することができました。兄も待ちに待っていたものと思いますし、このことを本当に家族全員で喜び合いたいと思います。お墓の前に備えてやりたいと思います。前はですね、こうしたもう皆さん市民で埋め尽くされています。こうした仏塔の前には皆さんこうして市民がですね集結しています。
Nobody has been charged in relation to Nagai's death, and Myanmar officials claim the killing was an accident. But an autopsy conducted in Japan showed that Nagai was likely shot dead from close range, around 1 meter or 3 feet. Ogawa said her family would submit the footage to authorities in Japan as evidence against the Myanmar military's assertion that her brother's killing was an accident. 事故だという扱いでこの17年、16年間来ましたけれども、明らかに私たちの立場としてはいろんな方向から考えても至近距離からの銃撃であったと思っております。真実を見極めて真相を明らかにしていただきたいという気持ちです。The camera was obtained by journalists from Myanmar news outlet The Democratic Voice of Burma. Its chief editor, Ai Chan Nang, said he could not go into detail about how they obtained the camera in order to protect sources in Myanmar, which is once again under military rule.
We cannot, go deeper into how we get it. What I can tell you is we got it through a good citizen who knows what is right and what is wrong. And that's how we got it.
Nagai had traveled to Myanmar to cover monk-led demonstrations against the then junta for AFP News, or APF News, a small Tokyo-based agency that specializes in reports from danger zones. He was killed on September 27, 2007, after troops opened fire on demonstrators near Yangon's famous Sul Pagoda, bringing renewed international attention to the general's brutal crackdown. A photo of Nagai lying on the road, a soldier in combat uniform and sandals, standing over him and holding a gun, won a Pulitzer Prize in 2008. President Marcos vowed to improve the country's low ranking in the world's Press Freedom Index. During the 50th anniversary of the kapisanan ng mga broadcaster ng Pilipinas at the Manila Polo Club in Makati, he acknowledged the country continues to trail behind the said list of the Reporters Without Borders to measure the quality of press freedom worldwide. Take a look.
We will commemorate the 30th anniversary of the UN World Press Freedom Day. We are aware that currently the Philippines sits at 147th place in the World Press Freedom Index. For its part, this government will remain committed to ensuring transparency and good governance, freedom of expression and of the press, and the protection of media practitioners and their rights in the practice of their profession.
He also said he considers the media an important part of a democratic government.
We recognize the significant contribution in the shaping of public opinion and the development of a highly well-informed citizenry. KBP's role remains crucial now as it has ever been, as we continue to confront newer and pressing challenges to our society. One is the challenge of ensuring the integrity and credibility of information. Well, we started with mistaken information. Then it became more active, disinformation and misinformation, and now out and out fake news. These are among the negative effects of technological advancement and the social media age. However, it is something that is to be expected considering how powerful a tool social media has become. It is up once again to the KBP to bring a measure of stability, a measure of objectivity, to help our people discern what is the real information and what is propaganda.
Go Negosyo founder Joey Concepcion sees the collaboration of the private and public sectors as crucial in accelerating the development of the agriculture sector in the country. During the meeting between President Marcos Jr. and members of the private sector were updates on the Kapatid Angat Lahat for Agricultural Program or CALAP were discussed. Mr. Concepcion recognized the potentials of agriculture as one of the main drivers of economic growth.
At kailangan natin patibayan natin yung mga micro-farmers natin kasi nakasalalay dito yung our ability to compete kasi nakikita natin yung presyo ng agricultural products from our ASEAN neighbors are much lower than ours. No? That means they're able to produce these commodities at a much lower cost. No? At ang problema dito is, I was telling the President, it's really scale. Marami tayong mga micro-farmers, but we need them to scale up. At isang issue dito ang agrarian reform. No? Kasi katulad ng sa ibang bansa, Cambodia, Myanmar, the farmers there are really running large tracts of lands. No? So, itong paglunsad ng CALAP is really getting our big brothers, ng malaking agriculture companies who are into coconut, into rice, into cacao, into tobacco, sugar, etc., to help our micro-farmers and the different support agencies of agriculture. We've also met the banks. So, what we're trying to do is build the ecosystem that will be strong enough to support our micro-farmers. Ngayon, ang problema ng mga maliit na natin farmers is the ability to borrow money. No? Nahirapan sila kasi hindi pwedeng isanla yung mga lote nila kasi nasa agrarian reform yan na bawal mag-mortgage ng mga agricultural lands na binigay sa kanila. No? So, hindi they can use the land to till the soil, whatever they grow, corn, rice, etc. Pero they cannot borrow. Nagkaroon kami ng meeting about a week ago. Lahat ng mga bangko nandiyan, DBP, Land Bank, BDO, BPI, lahat ng mga bangko. One line that they said, we'd rather pay the penalty than lend the farmers because mataas yung risk. At totoo naman, mataas yung risk dito sa agrikultura kasi either if you're in animals, growing chicken, livestock, and all of that, you get confronted with diseases. No? Make our farmers more productive. How do we support them? Without funding, it is very difficult. Pero itong Big Brother approach, ng tinatawag natin CALAP, katulad si Christian Moeller ng Lionheart Farms, dito sa coconut, he uses his working capital to fund the farmers. Pero there are limits. But the challenge really here is how do we provide more working capital to our small farmers, which currently right now, under the Big Brother approach, is already being done by our Big Brothers. But how further can we go? How we need to scale up. And the Big Brother approach will help a lot, but I think it will help a lot if we are able to find a way how our farmers can use the land that they have to be able to secure loans so that they can use that to further enhance their plantation.
In other news, the president's economic team doesn't consider the rise in COVID cases a threat to the country's recovery and believes that a lockdown is not imminent. In a briefing, Finance Secretary Benjamin Diokno told reporters that there's nothing to fear despite the recent report of the Department of Health that new cases are increasing. Take a look.
I don't think there will be another lockdown. Okay, they just issued the alert. Plus, the difference between the situation then and now is there are vaccines available, and there's a standard protocol for COVID cases. If you're sick, you just go to the hospital or drink something or just rest. Okay, so I don't think that's kind of scary. Okay, so I don't even think why you're wearing your mask here. Okay.
National Economic and Development Authority Secretary Arsenio Balisacan dispelled fears that an impending El Nino would lead to high inflation and disrupt the country's economic recovery.
We have already put in place, the President has created, as you may have known, the Interagency Committee on Inflation and Market Outlook. No? That committee is mandated to task to monitor movements of prices, to anticipate the effects of things like El Nino and production, so that we can plan the appropriate response if we need to import more to cover any potential shortfalls in production. Then we would have to make that decision early on and not wait until the effects are already felt by our population.
Right now, sir, may specific commodities na po ba based on monitoring of the committee that would need additional supply?
Wala pa naman, because the effects of the El Nino are expected to be felt toward the latter part of the year, no? And it'll spill over to next year.
As an initiative to helping youth achieve behavioral change across Port Moresby, the National Capital District Commission's development program has set its sights on performing arts. PNG CIRCUS, a team of 12 youths from different communities from across the city, took their biggest stage yet at the Moresby Arts Theater. At the scene is Papua New Guinea correspondent Echo Ortelesa Quinola reporting from Port Moresby.
It is World Circus Day, and here in Port Moresby, the first Papua New Guinea circus show lights up the Moresby Arts Theater. Hosted by the Active City Development Program, the show features 11 homegrown performers. Diverse entertainment showcases acrobatic skills, aerial silk dance, stunts, and clowns comedy skits.
Well, it took us 5 years to practice this show, and when I was up there, I was like, okay, I'm going to give my best, and I want everyone to enjoy.
It's a first PNG circus in Papua New Guinea. It's under the Active City Development Program. We want to take this PNG circus to next level.
Guest performer and internationally acclaimed circus star Rogerio Piva graces the show. Piva wows the crowd with breathtaking unicycling, juggling, and ball shooting.
Being in 37 countries, I work around the world in many circles and stuff. Here the people is so good. I do show in community normally, no? And the people is beautiful. They really believe, they're really excited. They really love what they do. So good energy. I feel so happy.
Spectators cheer on each performance. Excitement fill the air.
Lost for words. I am just very, very happy with these young kids who had no opportunity before, no talent, no skills, and in 2 years they've transformed. And so I'm proud of them. And for a first show, it's a great show. Yeah.
It was fantastic. It was fantastic. You know, the kids have put a lot of effort into the show. It was just very, very beautiful.
Amazing, brilliant. This is something different and incredible. Like, love it.
Yeah, I'm very proud that Papua New Guinea can do this. And it's nice. It's very tremendous for us to see such event and such skills.
Ang galing-galing nila, and it's my first time to watch circus dito sa PNG. I didn't expect na mayroon palang ganito sa PNG. It's the first time ever, really. And well, I give credits doon sa mga organizers.
The Active City Development Program says that the circus is one way to empower the youth to elevate their lives by indulging them in physical activities and creative arts. Echo Hortaleza Quinola, Port Moresby, Papua New Guinea. Eagle News, we live in extraordinary times.
Thanks, Echo. Meanwhile, the newest wildlife park in Singapore is ready to welcome its bird visitors. Take a look.
By having the birds have so much more space and be able to coexist with many different species, because the more space you have, the more animals you can mix, as long as they get along, obviously. And we went to very much detailed, making sure that whatever is mixed here actually can coexist without any problems. But that means that they get to experience new things. They get to fly more, they get to interact with other species, they get to be in bigger flocks. And this is really important for them. And so we're very happy that not only does it look great, it's also great for the birds. The population plan here, we have one of the largest populations of birds in the human care in one single institution. And we're going to start over with already over 400 species and over 3,500 animals. As the park matures, this will continue to grow.
The bird paradise has 8 large aviaries that visitors can walk through to see the birds of different species living together in the same enclosure. During the media preview on Friday, visitors saw flamingos and macaws living side by side and got close to friendly parrots and hornbills. The birds have been gradually relocating to the new 17-hectare park over several months since their old home closed in January. From the previous park in Jurong to the new one in Manday, there are now twice as many aviaries that visitors can walk through, which means more chances to get up close and personal with these curious birds.
We are not starting from scratch in the sense that we have a huge heritage from Jurong Bird Park. And what we're doing with this place, because of the infrastructure and because of how it's designed and how it allows the birds to have so much more quality of life, we can actually amplify everything that was good from Jurong Bird Park.
More aviaries also means more space for the park's 3,500 birds from over 400 species. The bird paradise will open on the 8th of May. As my usual habit, I'd like to end the day on a positive note. Let's encourage and build each other up so that no one is left behind. And that's it for tonight's broadcast. I'm Alma Angeles. Stay in the news because we live in extraordinary times. Good night.